What is the most important piece of equipment on your coffee bar? It's actually a grinder. If you cannot grind consistently well every single time, you're just not going to get quality coffee as a result. If you are a coffee lover or somebody who brews their own coffee at home, there is a very strong chance that you have seen this coffee grinder all over social media. The Fellow Ode was one of the most anticipated coffee grinders of 2020, and for good reason. It revolutionized the way we brew coffee at home by bringing cafe-style coffee to your home coffee bar at a decent price. Plain and simple, the Fellow Ode changed the game, and as a result, it became one of the most popular coffee grinders, being featured literally everywhere. As someone who absolutely loved the Fellow Ode, today I am super excited to announce that I've teamed up with Fellow Products to help introduce to you the new Fellow Ode Brew Grinder Gen 2. Yes, the Fellow Ode has been redesigned and re-engineered and is back better than ever. When it comes to the design of the Ode Brew Grinder Gen 2, Fellow kept things more or less the same, which I definitely think was the right decision. They're not trying to reinvent the wheel or change the image of an already beloved grinder, they're simply trying to upgrade themselves. As a whole, the Ode Brew Grinder Generation 2 that you see here in matte white is almost identical to its predecessor in the matte black beside it. The height and width of the grinder are very similar, and it's still a compact machine. It features a big clock-like dial on the front for adjusting grind size, a dosing cup, a knock tab, and of course the built-in hopper with a removable lid. One thing that I am personally very glad they kept is the brewing guide underneath the hopper lid. It's always a good reference point when dialing in a new coffee. The Ode Brew Grinder Generation 2 is available in the matte white like I have here with me, and of course the ever-trendy matte black. I mean, come on, do you even have a brew bar if you don't have a matching matte black aesthetic? Now, the biggest, most important upgrade for coffee lovers is actually what's inside the grinder, the burrs. In the Generation 2 Ode, Fellow has included their new Generation 2 Brew Burrs, which were released earlier this year. The team at Fellow spent about 2 years on research and development to improve the Generation 1 burrs to help coffee lovers brew better coffee with the Generation 2 Ode. The new Generation 2 Brew Burrs are 64mm stainless steel, feature a unique 2-stage grinding geometry, and feature 31 different levels of grind adjustment. They have better consistency and help increase grind extraction between 250 to 300 microns. We got a little bit nerdy there, so you might be wondering, what does all that mean? Well, the Ode Brew Grinder Gen 2 will help you brew a sweet, balanced, complex cup full of clarity that will allow you to taste how amazing your coffee actually is. Generation 2 burrs are definitely a huge step up and seem to have answered the call well for finer grinding. Before, I often found myself on setting 1 for V60 style brews, but now on these new burrs, I often find myself closer to a 3 or 4. Now, it's super important to note that these burrs do not grind fine enough for espresso. So if you're looking for one grinder to do both brewing methods, this unfortunately is not that grinder. Fellow prides itself on being a master of one when it comes to the Fellow Ode, and it is unashamedly a filter coffee grinder. And I think that's perfectly okay because it does filter coffee really, really well, better than pretty much any other grinder on the market. Two other noticeable design changes: they've increased the size of both the hopper and the catch cup to 100 grams, which is handy for anyone doing large batches. They've also increased the angles of the hopper so the beans go further down and don't get stuck. Fellow is also introducing new anti-static technology to lead to less retention, which is something I noticed right away with this Generation 2 Ode. Of course, even though this is a new grinder, Fellow was sure to keep many of your favorite aspects from Generation 1, like the single dose loading, the grind knocker, quiet grinding, and automatic stop. These are all key aspects that I feel keep the Fellow Ode a top-of-the-line grinder for your bar. As a coffee professional and content creator, I've gotten to use and experiment with a wide array of grinders, and many of them don't have the same built-in features, which simply leaves me going back to the Ode because it makes your life easier. Now, of course, the most important question you have to ask is, should you buy this grinder, and is this an upgrade? Having owned both the Generation 1 Ode with the Generation 1 Brew Burrs and the Ode Brew Grinder Generation 2 with the Generation 2 Brew Burrs, I can honestly say there is a world of difference between the two. You can brew the same coffee on the Ode Gen 1 and the Ode Gen 2 and have them taste different, with the newer grinder producing a cleaner, sweeter, more bodied cup of coffee. The Generation 2 Brew Burrs are a serious step up. The most important thing you have to ask yourself when it comes to any new piece of coffee equipment is, does this help me brew better coffee? When it comes to the Ode Brew Grinder Generation 2, I certainly believe it does. When you are buying a coffee grinder, outside of all the external bells and whistles, you are buying it for the burrs that are inside the grinder. Fellow has once again raised the bar by putting the Gen 2 Brew Burrs inside the Fellow Ode Brew Grinder Generation 2 and made it easier for you to brew high quality coffee at home.